All right, here we go. Mainline Executive Coaching ACT. We are here to talk about action. We're talking about also when we don't act, what goes on. Leaders, what do you do when you've got something to do and it's difficult and it's challenging and it's hard? Poof. Do you stand up? Do you face it? Do you go through it? Do you actually take it on? Or do you find yourself second guessing, doubting yourself? Do you find yourself giving in to your fears? That's what we want to talk about tonight. We want to talk about leaders. It's time for you to learn how to overcome your great fears and do it in great ways. So I'm here tonight with my partner, Rich Barron. I'm Michael Bailey, Mainline
Hello.
Executive Coaching ACT. So let's start with this. What about this whole thing about fear and how people dance around fear? And I'm going to tell you, it's a dance. Sometimes get a little complicated, but it's a dance. What about leadership and fear? Why do those almost like they're like they shouldn't go together at all?
No, but unfortunately, fear is a factor that we deal with a lot. There's fear of failure. There's fear of the next big thing. There's fear of people thinking that you're not capable. There's all sorts of fear involved with leadership. Every single one of those are things that you can overcome. Every one of them.
They absolutely are. And that fear, I love what Zig Ziglar used to call it false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
There's something to that that's really kind of interesting to play around with. This idea though of fear and leadership. So we're talking about, I want to make a position here about leadership. Leadership is something that is a thing. It is a thing. It has real substance to it. It has something there that is real. It's palpable. It's something that you can feel and touch, and it's bringing forth something. When you're leading, you are doing just that. It's like Napoleon Hill talks about ideas are things. They're things in our brains. Literally, there are neural pathways in our brain that we look at and we take a look at and we see what it is. And then we go from those things that are there in our brain, we go and do other things to create results, to create
Yes.
outcomes. Leadership is that same kind of thing that it has substance. And I want you to, and those of you who are watching tonight, if you're a leader, what is the substance? Not just the presentation, but the real substance of your leadership. We were just talking about a guy that who
Yeah.
is a guy he has a lot of presentation when it
Yeah.
comes to leading, but as far as his actual stuff that he shows up with, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of stuff that he shows up with. There's no real thing there and what it is that he has, but there's a lot of show. There's a lot of, look at me, my pretense, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
what can we do? What can
It's
we
like
do?
a Camaro with a four-cylinder engine in it. All
Yeah,
show, no go.
that's right.
Um, yeah. I think a lot of this is to really take a breather, sit, get away from what you're doing, and really take a strong look at what is causing this fear. And fear can be. Here's the thing: fear it's a reaction. Courage is a choice. Fear puts us in places such as a comfort zone because we're afraid to step out of that comfort zone because it's going to be difficult. Well, we all know that comfort zones are career killers. They can kill your organization, they can kill your career. If you sit there in that comfort zone and you do not have a plan for action, then what's your next step when you really have to take that you cross that bridge? What are you going to do? Face your fears. That's one of the biggest things you can do. You can respond to it as a problem. Fear is a problem to solve. Really take time to look at what is causing that fear. Is it are you afraid of people finding out that you're not up to the task? Are you trying to put yourself in a position where you want everybody to think you're perfect? Nobody's perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect as a leader.
That's right. So by definition, leaders have to step out in front. Now
Yes.
that so this that's a it's a real interesting irony about that, because one of the first things that leaders fear is that people won't follow them, that they'll step forward, they'll start the lead, but nobody will be behind them. That's another thing about lining up your people to make sure that they're behind you, or figuring out how to create those relationships of sustaining, you know, them sustaining you, but because you're sustaining them. You're working together. You got a high level of relationship going on with those people that you're leading. But by definition, you've got to break away from the pack, which then sets you in a position of being abandoned. It sets you in a position of having to stand alone, put you in a position of having to, raise the flag, make the mark, set the place where you're going to. All of those are real position. When you talk about vulnerability in leadership, that is a genuine position of leadership, that being vulnerable, because you're stepping forward with something that we're going to do different, something we're going to approach in a different way, or we're going to go after it in a different way. And once you get that going, and that's the first thing, what happens when I step forward and they don't follow? What are you going to do then?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying leadership is something real. Because if you don't have the reality, you don't have the stuff of leading, when you lead and you push back, and there's some pushback that will happen. People will not always agree with what you're doing here. If you don't have the substance, the stuff to keep moving forward, that doesn't mean walking over people. That means the real legitimate stuff to help people to follow you. If you don't have that, all that happens is you fall apart.
Yes.
Fear drags you down, tears you up, rips you apart. And all of a sudden, your worst fears as a leader, which is really that people finding out that, well, maybe they don't have what it takes to lead. They don't have what it takes to inspire people, to get people behind them, to get people to buy in, to really make this thing work and win. Maybe that's what's really going on. So this idea of leaders, it is inherent to your position, no matter what level you are in a corporation, that you are going to put yourself in a position of having to deal with fear. There's no way to get around it. It is inherent to the position of leadership, and it comes at you in a whole lot of different ways. Knowing your substance, knowing who it is that you are and what you are really all about, that's where it begins. And the fear then becomes one of, what do I bring to the table? Now, how can we help them? Let's just go right there. If you've got that concern, if that's kind of the pit of your stomach, sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes you're just nervous about it. You're going to a meeting, you got all the stuff that you got to do. If that's a concern, how can we help them to start seeing that you really do have some substance, and we can grow that substance of your leadership?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Assessments. We start there. We start finding out who you are as an individual. First step. And that takes courage, being vulnerable, because we have an assessment called an MLEI that really breaks down who you are as a leader internally. It's that inner core, who you truly are, your beliefs, your core purpose, your foundation, that drives that outer core that everybody sees. But it's that inner core that we first are focusing on. We're not going to come out here and tell you, well, you got to develop your communication skills, or your team leadership is lacking. That's not the first step. The first step is to find out who you are, where your strengths are, where your gaps lie, and then start working on that. But it's all about that inner core. It's all about who you are, what drives you as a leader. And that's being vulnerable. And I'll tell you what, you mentioned a few minutes ago, Michael, about vulnerability. Vulnerability is contagious. Trust in an organization is contagious. When you start showing that you're vulnerable as a leader, and you start stepping out and showing people that I do have flaws, I want to improve, and I need your help. I need your help to help me improve. Vulnerability is contagious, and it starts creating trust within an organization. And so trust really becomes from that vulnerability. But that vulnerability starts with you, starts with the individual.
Yeah, just being honest about what it is that you bring.
Yeah.
That's again, that's kind of the unknown. The fear of the unknown. There's another fear, Rich.
Yeah.
The fear of the unknown. Maybe you really don't know the substance of your leadership abilities, your capacities. Maybe you don't know that. And because you don't know that, you may feel like, I don't want to know it. I might find that there's nothing there. There's nothing there. But that's not going to be the case. Everybody has leadership potential. Everybody has some sort of natural leadership that's just inside them. You may not know how to find it. You may not know how to develop it, but we will find that. I tell you, we will find it for you, and we will show you. We'll help you believe in it. That sense of confidence starts to happen there. And then with that, we can now show you how to grow it, how to expand it, so that you now can claim legitimately, these are my skills as a leader. You not only know them, intellectually, you have a feeling about it, but you have that ability now to bring them forth and demonstrate that. That's
Yes.
real confidence. That's
Yes.
self-knowledge. That's capacity. That's your belief in operation. That's also your leadership character that's really
Yep.
being developed. That's what's going on there. And that's where I'm going to tell you, most leaders, whether they recognize it or not, that's where they get tripped up, because they don't know
Right.
and they're afraid to find out. Fear of, I don't know.
Well, when we talk about these leaders that we look at as they're being great organizational, cultural leaders, ones that have really drove companies to be, huge, like Apple, Steve Jobs, Roger Enrico from PepsiCo, Bill Logue of FedEx, and that's just to start the list. This MLEI we're talking about, every one of those people I just mentioned started their coaching journey with that MLEI after they had already established themselves in these senior management and leadership roles. They knew they had to do something more. They knew that there was more to their
Well,
ability.
also, this is interesting, Rich. If
Yeah.
a leader, this is a weird thing. A really great leader, there's only about 5% of really great leaders out there in different
Yeah.
organizations. I mean, 5%
Yeah.
is a surprising low number. These
Yes.
guys, I'll bet you anything, because they were humble and they were willing to take a look at it, I'll bet you they were in that 5%. And so what makes it interesting, they probably looked at the results of that MLEI and it told them things that they knew. Yeah, these are my strengths. And it probably told them some things that they knew about. Yeah, I'm not so hot on this.
Right.
I bet you anything. I bet you anything. It also told them things that they didn't know about their strengths. It told them things about that they didn't know about some of their weaknesses that they've just
Right.
been kind of avoiding.
Yeah.
But how do you really play? Let's say you're playing a game of poker. Okay, five hand poker, but you only have two cards, and you got to play, you got to bet, you got to call bluffs, you got to put those ante it up and all that kind of stuff. You got to do all that stuff, but you only have two cards. What kind of confidence can you have in playing five-hand poker when you only have two cards? None. You have no confidence because you don't know what the other two cards are that you're betting on. Well, that's what it's like, leaders. If you only have one or two cards in a five card hand here, and as a leader, you're not going to have the kind of confidence that you should have. Because if you have all five, then you know which ones you're going to hold and which ones you're going to throw. Get some new cards if you need to. That's what we can help you do. Let's find out. Let's really go. Let's get rid of those things that are getting in your way. Let's strengthen the things that you have. Let's help you build a better hand that you can now play as a leader.
Yep. So this MLEI, Michael, has over 12,000 global leaders in it in over 150 countries worldwide who have used that assessment to start their journey. So we've developed quite an audience on this podcast. We got some great followers across the globe. So our call out to you is to reach out to us, no matter where you're at, and let us help you. Now, when I said 12,000 global leaders, are you going to be the 12,001st? Going to be the 12,002nd? Are you going to add to that list? Are you going to start the same journey that some of the greatest corporate leaders of our time have started down the same path?
That's
Ask yourself. Or are you afraid?
And
Is that what you got to be afraid of?
Again, that's the very place you don't want to be, leaders.
No.
You don't want to be stuck in that uncomfortable zone of fear and finding that somebody's going to find out that you don't have what it takes, that you're imposter, you're just playing at it, and you really don't have the substance. You already have substance. The question is, do you know what the substance is? Yeah. Are you ready to develop more of it? Are you willing to grow it? Are you willing to now expand that substance of being a genuine, authentic leader that makes a difference in people's lives? In your companies, in your life, and anything else that you have that capacity because now you really know. And it starts with, I'll tell you what it starts with. It starts with two things. You know what they are? Curiosity. Yeah, I'd like to know that. And second is a little bit of courage.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to know, and I'm going to do something about it. That's our invitation to you. It really is.
Absolutely.
All right, how do they do it?
Well, it's a whole lot easier than you might think. Executive Leaders Act ILEC.com. Go to our website, and from there you can click on the links to get a hold of us. You can read about us. You can read about the MLEI. You can read about all these assessments, and you can read on there testimonials from global leaders that will tell you exactly how this works.
That would be outstanding. Let's give a shout out to those folks that are watching us out there in Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. We got some fans out there, some people that are watching us. Thanks so much. Appreciate you being part of what it is we're doing here. Got questions?
Absolutely.
Got something you want to ask us? Got something you want to tell to us? Come on. Bring it on in. Bring it home. Let's deal with it. Let's do it.
Very good. So once again, everybody, we are at the end of another episode of Mainline Executive Coaching ACT. We appreciate everything you do and everything that you support us in. And we're ready to be here for you. We're ready just to talk. Let's call up and let's have a conversation. We're open. Let's if you want to call and tell us about your week, let's do that too. Let's just talk. So let's get you started on that journey. So once again, thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Be safe. Take care of each other. And because heaven knows this is a time we need to reach out to each other. We need to take care of each other right now. So make sure you do that. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, folks. All the best.